managing your career, and you think about the second piece that I had you look at, the article, and does your work speak for itself? How did you think about this when you applied it to yourself, when you thought about yourself? How did it make you think in regards to your own career?
It made me realize that you have to be uncomfortable in order to grow. Sometimes you can't get too comfortable. And that's something like I would used to do. I was really comfortable, like let's say my last position, and I had this chance brought up to me, opportunity brought up to me before, but I wasn't ready to take it just because I felt too comfortable where I was at. So I had to learn that mindset, like, oh, it's okay to not be comfortable in order for my to let myself grow.
You can't just assume everybody knows what you're doing. Your body of work. That's what I took away. It's just like a light bulb. They don't. They really don't. And it's not a knock to management. It's just that they hire you to do a position. They don't know the in between the lines. Always.
And Josh, especially in your job,
Yes.
right? Think about
yes.
like new home guides, pretty visible, right? If new home guys not doing their job, everyone knows that there's no sales and the company's shrinking. So very, very visible to everyone what's going on with that. In your position, there are so few people that understand what you just said. You speak a different language. You interact with a totally different network than most the people in the organization, right? You talk to different trades, different people, different contacts, and the work you do is incredibly important, but also invisible. Like the only time, a lot of times, you know what's going on with the development guy is when he screwed up and something gets pushed and you can't sell or you didn't get a permit or, right? You're almost like the long snapper in football sometimes, right? Really important job. Don't really know they're doing a great job until you snap one over the punter's head.
Until that deadline is missed. Then everybody starts asking questions.
Yeah. So this concept is really important in your position because it's a critical position. Home builders can't operate without you, but can be taken for granted sometimes because what you're doing is almost invisible to a lot of people.
And the comment you made about the favors, that's what's helped me the most is I have very good, I focus on connections with people, business is business, but there's still a personal aspect that we need to keep. And it's carried me, people respect me. So I've called in more favors than people know. A lot more.
Love it. I love it.
It's like even the picture that you have up now, like all the managers, to go off of what Josh said, like it's all, they see the surface level. They don't see everything underneath it that has been building and building that you've been working on. So I think my takeaway from that article too was that you have to market yourself in a sense, especially if you want to move up in a company. Like you have to develop those relationships and really put your best foot forward. And yeah, there was another part of it that the panel, how if you're interviewing for another job, like how Liz is now in CEA, like if you're interviewing for that job, you won't always get the interview. Like they're going to be observing you over a while, and then it's going to be presented to you, but you want to market yourself in a sense.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Liz, with your promotion to CEA, did an email go out to the whole region saying we have an open CEA position? If you'd like to apply, please put your name in the hat.
No.
How did you find out about it?
It was more in-house, and it was one of my goals actually this year, because as a team, our community leader, Josh, he asked us one by one, what's your goal for this year? My goal was to move up within the company to a CEA role. So even though I was a warranty coordinator at the time, I made sure if the CEAs needed help, hey, what do you need help on? Hey, what can I help you on? What can I do to learn this process more, a little bit more? And yeah, whenever I had time, I used to shadow them once or twice a week. I took time out of my day to do that and just involve myself.
Yeah. So the email that goes out to the region is not, hey, we have an open position, put your name in the hat. The email that goes out is, congratulations to Liz, she's been promoted to CEA. That's how it works. A lot of times people have this romantic vision of a company that when the manager job comes available and there's an open position, someone's going to tap them on the shoulder and say, would you like to interview? And there's going to be a panel. It doesn't work that way almost ever, right? Like it is, the only time it works that way is if there's two people that are really close, neck and neck. But other than that, what in the world are you going to tell me in an hour that I haven't already watched from 50 hours a week of hard work and results from the last 2-3 years? What in the world could Liz have said to have changed my mind, based on all of the work she had done in her warranty position that I've been watching? There's nothing you're going to say. The only reason you interview people from outside the company is you haven't had a chance to watch them for 2-3 years, right? Baseball players do not interview with new companies when they get offered a contract. Everything they do is on tape. Their baseball card shows their stats. I have numbers on them. The only reason we have to interview, I'm hiring a marketing person right now. I'm interviewing. I don't have a baseball card. I don't have their cards. I don't have their stats. Right? I can try to find some references that have worked with them, but for the most part, I haven't been able to watch. So I have to interview, which is not great. Interviewing, even if you're great at it, it's 50-50 on whether you get it right. But I get to watch you. I get to watch you as employees. So understanding that you interview every day and whatever the job is that you want next, you have to show those skills, not the job that you have now, right? Not the job you have now. If you're in sales and you want to be a sales manager, okay, it's helpful that you're good with customers. It's helpful that you can close. Much more helpful that you're good with people, that the last 2 salespeople we hired, you helped train, you helped onboard, because guess what? That's what a sales manager does. They train, they're patient, they answer questions. So you have to show that you have the behaviors and the skills and show that every day for whatever the job is that you want next. That's how you get promoted. You make it so obvious that when they see you, they don't even see you in that job anymore. They see you in the next job, because you do so much of that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we started to talk about brands. So what is a brand? What's the definition of a brand?
What represents you?
Yep. What else? What's a brand? Think about it.
Who you are as a person.
Yes. What else? Think about it. What's a brand?
What you stand for.
Yep. I think all these things are right. The definition in the dictionary would be an identity or image regarded as an asset. Can a brand also be a liability?
Yes.
Right? Like a brand isn't just an asset. It could be a negative asset, right? If I wanted to start a new business, if I wanted to start come out with a new cologne and I called it ISIS, would that help me? ISIS cologne, right? Not a great brand in America. Probably wouldn't do that well, right? If I named it that, right? So, when you think about brands, you think about different logos. So as I show you this, blurt out the adjectives that come to your mind.
Just do it.
No wrong answers. Everyone blurt.
Athletes, athletic.
Yeah, sports.
What else?
Expensive.
What else? Come on. I know you have more thoughts than that.
Clothes.
Everybody wants it.
Okay. In demand, expensive, sports, just do it, right? What about athletes? Do you think of certain athletes when you see this?
Jordan.
Basketball.
Michael Jordan, any other athletes you think of?
Tiger Woods until,
Okay. Tiger Woods came to your mind. You did think of him, not until, right? So if I was a Nike CEO and I was creeping in on this call and listening, would I be happy about the stuff you just said?
Yeah.
Right? Like I didn't steer you. I just asked, what'd you think? I want you to think those things, right? Why do I want you to think all of those things? Why do I want you to think about just do it and sports and athletics and expensive and Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan? Why do I want you to think those things?
Because it's their brand.
But what's that do for me? I'm a CEO. Why would I want you to think that? What does my brand do for me as a company?
Exposure brings people in.
Okay. Might get them to just come in the first place. How about if I'm at Dick's Sporting Goods and I'm looking at a row of shoes with all kinds of different logos on it? Do I want that customer thinking all the things you just said when I look at that logo? Yeah, don't overthink it. I want a good brand because I want to charge you $50 more per shoe.
Mhm.
That's why I want a good brand. I want to sell more shoes. And if you think all of those things about my brand, my company is more valuable. I make more money, right? Think about, how about this one? Blurt out. Blurt.
Very expensive.
Luxury. Luxury.
Luxury. What else?
Bougie.
Clean. Yeah.
Clean. Okay. What else? No one's wrong. These are your feelings. That's what a brand is. It is individual to the person. This is the brand to you. What was that, Josh?
Established.
Established. Okay. Been around a long time. What else?
I think at the spa, they
Okay.
have a lot of marketing on their spas.
Yeah. So great spas, right? It's probably not a crappy spa if you go in there.
Mhm.
So, why does Ritz want you to think all those things?
They want you to think it's the best.
Because
They want to
They-
charge
they
you
make
top
back
dollar.
money.
they want to charge you $1,800 for a one bed queen,
Mhm.
right? That overlooks the interior of the hotel. That, right? And they don't just do that through advertising. That's right. Ritz-Carlton, if you've ever been in one, the service is outrageous. They have triple the number of staff for every guest versus like a Holiday Inn, right? That's charging you $100 for that same room. If you ask where the bathroom is, anyone at Ritz-Carlton is going to walk you to the bathroom, not just point and say down the hall. They go out of their way to do different things because they want you to believe that. Because if you believe that and you feel that way, you'll spend more money. How about this one?
iPhone.
Come on, Blurt. You guys got to have thoughts on this one.
I will say smartphone.
Very popular.
Popular. What else? Adjectives. What comes to mind?
Monopoly.
Monopoly. Everywhere. Ubiquitous. Yep.
Mm.
What else?
Innovative.
Popular.
Yeah. So popular, everywhere, monopoly, innovative, smartphones, high tech. When's the last time Apple came out with an iPhone that you just had to have because it had some ridiculously great feature?
Like within the last year.
Mhm.
I haven't in like 5-6 years had one other than the camera's a little better. I haven't
Yeah.
really seen that, but their brand is innovative. Where are
Mhm.
they on AI? Anyone know anything about Apple's AI?
They did just integrate an AI with Apple.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been like panned as crappy, right? Like they haven't done a lot of these things, but people keep buying the iPhone because their brand is so strong. If you look
Mhm.
under the hood, there's not a new product Apple's come out with since the Apple Watch. Not one new
Yeah.
product. It's the same phone. They just keep making a little lighter, a little faster, right? The new camera. They haven't really innovated in a long time, but we still say innovative. That's strong for their brand. That's why they have a monopoly. Josh nailed it. They have a monopoly, and it's their brand that does it. How about this one? Last one.
Global.
Gross, to be honest.
Popular.
Mhm. Mhm.
Crank's smiling. I think Crank disagrees with Jen that it's gross. Crank's like, I just had a double quarter pounder.
Hungry.
Hungry.
My son loves McDonald's. It's once in a blue moon that we get it.
So, does anyone sell more cheeseburgers in the world than McDonald's?
Probably not.
Probably
It's not even close. They're the biggest restaurant. They have the most restaurants. I think they have some crazy number like 37,000 restaurants globally, right? Slinging cheeseburgers. They sell more fast food than anyone, and they also spend the most on marketing and advertising, right? So if you're the biggest and you have that brand, why do you have to spend that much on marketing? Also, Apple spends the most in their category and they're the biggest, and Nike spends the most in their category and they're the biggest with the best brand. Why do you have to
They wanna-
spend that much on advertising?
They want to stay the biggest. They want to beat out the competition.
Coca-Cola spent, I think they spent more than the next three beverage companies in their category, most in the world, and they sold 33 billion cases of Coca-Cola last year around the world, right? Coca-Cola is clearly the most popular soda on the planet, and they still spend gobs of money telling you that way. And the point is, this is coming, I'm really trying to spike the football here on you guys. It's not enough to just have a good product. You have to tell people and remind them, right? You have to remind them. Ritz-Carlton is a 130-year-old brand. They are constantly telling you how good they are. They're still telling you, right? Every big brand is constantly telling you how good they are, no matter how much you think that they're great. And it's the same with Josh, right? It's not enough that Josh just does a great job and expect it to work for itself. If the biggest brands on the planet have to spend money on marketing, then you as very small brands have to spend time on marketing. You have to do the same thing. So do people have brands?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. What about her? What's blurred out? What's some adjectives? What's her brand?
biggest pop singer.
What else? Adjectives.
Lots of ex-boyfriends.
That's true.
She's
Like-
global as well.
Cult following.
Global, cult following, popular, right? Do we think she's lazy or is she hardworking?
She's hardworking.
You don't have to
Hardworking.
like her. You don't have to like her music. I don't know anyone who would say that she's not a really hard worker. Like
Yeah.
busts out a new album annually, right? Is there
Yeah.
anything Taylor Swift does that is not incredibly calculated based around her brand? Do you ever see her say anything dumb in the press or come out and put a stupid tweet out that gets everyone mad? She doesn't just jump on every podcast. She's very careful about her brand. And because of that, it's the most valuable brand in the history of pop music, more than Michael Jackson's. Like it is worth billions of dollars. If she were to sell her brand, Taylor Swift, that brand, billions of dollars, like up there with some of the top, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, that kind of stuff. And she's very deliberate about it. How about this guy? Blurt out adjectives that come to mind.
The best.
The greatest, yeah. Mhm.
The greatest.
Revolutionary. Is that the
Yeah.
word?
The
He
best,
changed it. He changed everything.
I think, winner. Guy just won, right? When I think of winning, I think of that guy. Hard worker, right? Those kind of things. But the best is really probably the most important thing. Does Michael Jordan want you to think he's the best? I think so, right? Why?
In a humble way. In a humble way.
Yeah. He wants you to think he's the best because he can sell more shoes,
Shoes.
right?
Yeah.
There are more people wearing Michael Jordan shoes than LeBron's in the NBA today. Michael hasn't played in 25 years. It has made Michael Jordan a billionaire multiple times over. So just like Taylor Swift has the most valuable brand in pop music, Michael Jordan, it's not even close. You could add up the next 30 athletes that you could come up with and they wouldn't touch his value,
Right.
his net worth. Michael Jordan, it's Michael and everyone else, right? So his brand, his personal brand, is his net worth. Do our brands change over time?
Mhm.
Yes.
Everything you do, everything you say, every action you take, your brand is constantly changing. Think about Elon Musk, right? If you were to ask me 15 years ago about Elon, 20 years ago, I'd have said, oh, it's that guy, that young guy that started PayPal and made a fortune, right? If you'd asked me that 20 years ago, that's what he was. He was a young guy from South Africa, right? Then you ask a few years later, it's like pretty ridiculous. He's upended the auto industry, and then he's going to Mars. How's he doing that? Then you start asking people, and you're like, he's in politics. I don't get it. Like, if you look at Elon Musk's, his brand, it's like a sine wave, right? With certain departments. Now, this is a guy, unlike Taylor Swift, unlike Michael Jordan, who doesn't give a damn about his brand. Like, he's reached some level of money where he can be that way, where he doesn't really care what you think about him. He's also strongly on the autism spectrum, so there's an emotional intelligence piece. But his brand has changed quite a bit on how people feel about him over time. Think about this guy. I'm old enough to remember when he was like a punky rapper in the 80s and made funny rap songs, right?
Mhm.
But then he was a TV star. And then there was a time where if you wanted to make a summer blockbuster, Will Smith was the guy. It was like Will Smith and Tom Cruise for like 15 years. Like, the biggest blockbuster every year had Will Smith in it. He was a superstar, and also one with like a really squeaky clean image, right? He was the rapper that didn't swear. He was always very squeaky clean, didn't swear in his movies, all of that. Then that happened. And right, it did some damage. People kind of flipped on him quickly. And if he'd just slapped someone that no one liked, he slapped someone who had a good brand, right? Chris Rock was another guy who was really popular and people liked. And so that one decision cost Will Smith a lot of money. One decision, 5 seconds of his life, hit his net worth in a big way, right? And now, does that mean it's over for Will Smith? Not even close. He'll figure it out. Americans, we get over shit really fast, right? We'll move on. Everyone will move on. But that cost him a lot of money. You haven't seen Will Smith in a big movie in a long time. And he was at that event, was getting an award for one of the biggest movies of the year. Hasn't been in a big movie since, right? So that decision, all of our decisions and our personal brand, it all ties to your net worth. At the end of your career, right? The end of your career, when it's all said and done, you'll have made a certain amount of money in your career, and you'll have a certain amount of money that you're worth. It will be 100% tied to what your personal brand was. Every dollar companies have paid you, every promotion, every bit of income that you earn will be tied to what others perceive of you, right? Your perceived value. Incredibly important. And so one of the questions I'm going to ask you in the homework is what you want your personal brand to be, right? And then I'm going to challenge you to think about, is it there? There's what you want it to be with the right people, but there's also the thought process of, am I there? Do I have the brand that I'm trying to build? And what do I need to do about that? These are questions a lot of people don't think about, even though they have everything to do with what you're paid. Everything. And part of thinking about this is psychology behind it. So the exposure effect, this is a psychological phenomenon. So all this really means is we tend to like or dislike things that we're familiar with or not familiar with, right? The more familiar we are with something, the more we tend to like it. The first work done on this was done at Oregon State, and it's a fascinating psychological study. This professor, he repeated it 5 times on 5 different semesters. The experiment was for an entire semester. He had a grad student show up to class and just sit down in a black bag. No eye slits, no mouth on the bag, and the only job this person had was to sit. Right? It was literally like a pillowcase that came down to their ankles. So you couldn't see their hands, you couldn't see anything. They didn't write, and they weren't allowed to talk to anybody. And he had another grad student who would just take notes and observe how people responded to the black bag. More unnerving, the professor acted like he couldn't see the black bag. Never once brought up that there's a black bag sitting in the room, right? Kind of creepy, think about it. And the same thing happened in 4 stages each time. At first, no one would sit next to the black bag. They were creeped out, right? So there would be just empty seats all around in a big circle like a halo. No one sat next to it, trepidation. Then some people would start to get pissed at the black bag. Like, what are you doing here? You're making a joke out of the class. Hey, we're paying for this class. What, they thought it was like a frat prank, and people would trip the bag. They would push it into the wall. Like, it got physical. Like this happened all 5 times that they ran this experiment. Then they would get curious. Then all of a sudden they went from like no one's around the black bag to the black bag was the most popular. Everyone wanted to sit next to the black bag. And they would ask it questions. What can we get you some water? They would just try to chat with it. To the end of the class, everyone liked the black bag. There would always be a couple people that would help the black bag out because the black bag was always tripping on the steps to get out because it couldn't see and it was clumsy and it would bump into walls. So they would help it get out and not run into the wall, help it not fall over. They would almost treat it like a little old lady that needed help. And it happened every single time. And in business, there are thousands of cases just like this. The most high profile one, Andy Jassy is the Amazon CEO. And when he joined Amazon, he was a marketing manager. And it was like a nondescript, mid-level, nobody marketing manager, right? I think Amazon has 300,000 employees. So you can imagine this is one of like thousands of marketing managers. Didn't, kind of a nondescript background before he got to Amazon. Hadn't really done a lot that was super impressive. And Jeff Bezos read a book that talked about this concept of a shadow advisor, where this position would literally just follow Jeff everywhere, except the bathroom, I guess. It would come into every meeting. If it was a board meeting, if it was a group meeting, if he was talking to someone one-on-one, he didn't have an office. When he wasn't in meetings with Jeff, he sat in the corner of Jeff's office and took notes. Literally shadow. That's it. And 3-4 times a day, Jeff would just ask him what he thought. What'd you think of that meeting? What'd you think how did you think I handled that with that person? And we just go through and ask a lot of questions. And what Andy said was, when he went for the job, all of his friends and all the different people at Amazon told him, don't do it. You can't take that job. Like, it's career suicide. That's a glorified administrative assistant job for Jeff Bezos. You put that on your resume and it's curtains for you. And what Andy said was, I had a chance to follow around 24/7 the guy that built one of the 5 largest companies in history and see how he did it. He saw it as, I'm going to learn a lot, but what came out of it that Jeff wasn't expecting. Jeff just thought he was going to have someone who kind of records and gives him information. He got to learn Andy's personality. He got to learn his sense of humor. He got to learn how smart he was. Andy got to weigh in on things that he never would have had a chance to weigh in on the company at his level, to the point where Andy made a suggestion after a meeting that we should provide cloud services, data centers for companies. We're really good at it. We have the biggest data center in the world. We should turn this into a business. And Jeff said, go do it. You got this budget. Go make it happen. It ended up becoming AWS, which is Amazon's most profitable business. And that's how Andy became CEO. He had exposure to the right person who got to learn about him and got to really understand him. And therefore, Jeff started to like him, right? And there's a lot of studies have been done on this. Harvey Coleman's got the most famous one because he did it over 30 years, where he looked at organizations and looked at who makes the most money in companies. And without any pretense, I can tell you all that I'm guessing you all work for Coulter because you want to make money. True? Is that true for everybody? You're here to make money? No one's here because they want to, charity purposes. You want to give Bobby another $1 billion. That's not, you're not doing this for charity. Like, you just want to get all those poor rich people nice, beautiful houses. No, you're here to make money, right? That's what work is. I'm here today because I like making money too. So call it what it is. In companies, the people that make the most money, 90% of it is exposure and your personal brand, right? Do people see what you're doing? That doesn't mean 10% you can be bottom 10% performer. So this is important. It just means that you have to do enough performance. You have to be a performer, but being number one has nothing to do with how much money you make, right? You have to be in the top 25% of what you do. It's everything else that gets you paid, right? So there's a minimum bar, got to perform at a minimum. But after that, it's all about the brand that you cultivate and how much exposure you get, right? Kayla moved that fast, clearly not because her performance was so great. She was good. She proved that she could learn fast. She did her stuff. She moved that fast because we could translate her behaviors to the next role so fast. Once we saw that it was costing the company money to keep her in a closer job because the processor job is bigger and it's obvious she's going to do good at that. We moved her, right? She was doing good enough. Same. Once she was good at processor, it became really obvious we're wasting money putting her in this job. She should be in an LO job, right? And same, management. We couldn't move her fast enough because of her brand, and we had exposure to her because everyone was telling us how good she was. And so this leads me to a term in sports, another one is sports. If you guys don't like sports, I'm going to annoy you sometimes because I like to talk about it. But maybe you'll learn about sports. So does anyone know what a coaching tree is in sports? Usually in pro sports, they talk about this. What's a coaching tree?
I've been around sports my whole life. I've never heard that phrase.
Is it like the hierarchy of the coaches?
Yep, to an extent, right? So a guy that's often talked about having a coaching tree is this guy. His name's Bill Parcells. He was a coach in the 80s in the NFL. And he won a couple of championships, and he's a Hall of Famer. He won a lot of games. But that's not really what he's known for the most. What he's known for is the coaches that he hired and developed when he was a coach in New York and Dallas. A very high percentage of them went on to become NFL head coaches too. So when I say tree, these are all the people that he had hired that went on to coach their own teams. And a high percentage of them are championship coaches, right? Sean Payton won a championship. Bill Belichick won 7. Nick Saban, I think a lot of people know who Nick Saban is. Bill Parcells gave him his first job, right? Coughlin won a championship. A very high percentage of Bill's coaches that he developed went on to do extraordinary things. That's what a coaching tree is. Mm-hmm. Another guy who's often talked about is Bill Walsh. He won 3 championships, also in the 80s. Another high percentage of people that worked on his staffs went on to be NFL head coaches. What's interesting about these two gentlemen, like 2/3 of the current NFL head coaches can be traced back to those two. 2/3. These guys haven't coached in over 25 years. And 2/3 of the current coaches in the NFL can be traced back at some point to one of them, right? So that's pretty wild, right? Like I root for the Detroit Lions. Our coach is Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was developed by Sean Payton. Sean Payton was developed by Bill Parcells. You can do that with like almost every coach in the NFL going back to one of two gentlemen, the coaching tree. And if you ask guys like Walsh or Parcells, are you more proud of your championships or your legacy continuing today? What do you think they say?
Legacy.
And it's not close. It's always the same thing when you see one of their interviews. I spent 13 years at MBR. I can't tell you one number that we hit. We had a bunch of record numbers, record volume, record profits. I don't remember any of the numbers. What I can tell you is there's 5 regionals in that company. All of them I hired. They're still there today, 7 years later. The president of the company is a guy that I hired and put into a region manager job, the underwriting manager. I can go through the list of people and tell you when they started. I was in the interviews with all of them. I'm really proud of that. The company is running just fine without me. Thank you very much. A little bit of an ego hit. I thought I was important. I left. Not that important, clearly. They're hitting records all the time without me. So But I'm really proud of that. That's a coaching tree. It's running just fine without me. And the reason why I share that with you is I'm no different than anyone else. Executives take a lot of pride in being known as being able to build a succession plan and to build a coaching tree so they can promote from within, right? Liz is here because she was promoted from within. You're all here because Coulter really believes in that. It is rare that Coulter goes outside the company for a manager. They really want to try to promote everyone they can from within. And, you know, being in this class doesn't guarantee you're going to get promoted to do more. You all have to do that on your own. But the fact that you're here and the company in a really rough sales year decided to continue to put you through this class and cut a big check for you shows that the company is really committed to doing those kind of things. They care about their coaching tree, but you have to do things that make sure that you're on the coaching tree, that you are, that you are engaging, that you have the right people. And this is the last slide we're going to talk about today. You need as many sponsors as you can to make a lot of money in a company, right? So I started with Kayla. Kayla clearly had a ton of sponsors, right? Even that new hire was a sponsor, right? She was saying really good things and it got forwarded to me and that mattered, right? So your immediate universe needs to sponsor you, but you also need sponsors that have some influence, that have a little bit of power, that can make some decisions, right? And so if I were to ask you, who are all of your sponsors? Who would go to bat for you? And the way to think about this, if you're not in the room, right? This is the way to think about your brand. If you're not in the room, if I were to take David's picture, put it up on a slide, and I had Scott Heyman in the room and Tony Adams in the room and and Alan Brandon and people that work around him, and I would say, all right, guys, blurt. Adjectives, blurt. They would blurt. They're human. They would immediately have a feeling about Crank, right? And if I were to keep going the same way I did with you all, with Apple, with Nike, right? You get some good, some bad, right? You get some good, some bad. That's his brand. That doesn't make it wrong, right, or indifferent. It's up to Crank to make sure that when someone asks that question, as many good things as possible come out about that brand. Does that make sense from a sponsor perspective, right? So for all of you, you got to think about who are my sponsors. And if you have sponsors that are really willing to go to bat for you, right? So the email that I shared with you about Kayla, that person was clearly really willing to sponsor her. She sent that email to a bunch of different people, really willing. She was also a brand new employee. She had zero influence. Not zero. Small bit of influence. She couldn't go promote Kayla. She couldn't pay Kayla. She had some influence with me, though, that mattered a little bit, but not high influence, right? So if that's all Kayla had, she needs to broaden her network. She needs to get a few more people that have high influence. And if you have people that you think might sponsor you, but maybe they're not willing yet for the next job, that just means you got to perform better, right? You got to perform better, or you got to share with more people what you're up to, what you're doing. Right? So those two things, because you want to get as many people as you can in this segment, right? You want to get people who are willing to sponsor you, but also have the ability to do something about it to help you. When you have a large group of sponsors like that, that's how you make as much money as you can in a company. Make sense?
Yes.
Have I hammered home the concept of brand well enough? Is it hammered into your head? Good. I want to have a brand as a guy who finishes on time, and I am only 1 minute late of doing that. So I am going to wrap this bad boy up. You're going to get an email from me shortly. It's going to have a handful of questions and something else to watch for next week. So when you journal it, don't forget, you don't need to reply to me. You don't need to send it to me, but bring those notes to the next class because I'm going to ask you those questions. And we're going to start next week's class by talking about your homework. Cool?
Awesome.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Great job, guys. You survived week 1. 11 more to go.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
All right. Bye.
Have a good
Take
one.
care.